Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Angela Loughridge.
Hi, how you doing, Lori?
Welcome,
Thanks so much for
Angela.
having me.
It's my pleasure. Let's start off with the first and always first question, which is what were the values and beliefs that you were
Absolutely.
brought up with that that affected you as you grew up into
Yes,
adulthood?
they affected so much too. I didn't realize that until this stage of life, but I was primarily raised by a single mom. And her philosophy, which she taught to me and which I have embraced, has been really be stronger than life because life is going to come at you with
Mm.
so many obstacles, so many challenges that you really just need to be stronger. In any way, anything that you can do to be stronger than life, do it. So I don't know if that's a positive thing or a negative thing, but that was her advice. And
Did she teach you specific things to do to make you
no, it was kind of like
stronger?
a DIY because for her to make, just to be transparent with her lifestyle, and since that time she has been delivered from this, but she was a functioning alcoholic, so it was alcohol that made
Mm.
her fortified, stronger than what life was throwing at her. And so she didn't say it with words, but she did say it with example of how to cope, so to speak. But I
Hmm.
chose a different path on how to be stronger. And I don't know if it was healthy, but until I got around more positive influences, it changed for the better.
Did you seek out those positive influences
Oh
or
no,
did they
I had to
just
seek
show
them
up for
out.
you?
Some people they get to a point like myself. I got to a point where I was just like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of being angry all the
Mm.
time, because this, if you get hard and you stay hardened, then that also hardens your heart, and when you become hard on the inside, you automatically come hard on the outside type of thing, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have positive
Sure.
intervention. So I was just tired of being angry all the time and always having to be the tough person until I was introduced to some positive people, and I was just like, wow, they're different. They still have life happening to them, but they have a positivity with their resiliency. And so I just sought out, them with more questions. And it wasn't overnight. We know nothing nothing happens
Hmm. Sure.
overnight. So it was over a course of, I dare say, over 15 years where this is after college, this is after any educational institutions where I purposely sought to surround myself with people who had a more positive outlook in life than I do, but also overcame obstacles. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all have obstacles, different ones, and they look different. From the outside, somebody else's
Right.
could look like they were easier than ours, right? But, going back to your point of spending, having it take 15 years, I mean, I really think it's a lifelong journey. Personal development is something that we're always
Right,
journeying
absolutely.
through.
I would say the 15 years was when I finally could let go of the anger, you know, and
Mm.
have still have the tough skin, but have a soft heart, you know. Yeah, so
I
that
like that.
was learned and that was set as an example for me through various people, various positive associations over all those years. And you're right, I'm still developing. I'm still not where I want to be, and I guess we shouldn't, because I guess we'd be super boring if we were, but there's always something to work on.
Exactly. There's always something. There's a difference though between being content and being
Yes, I agree.
complacent.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So being content and accepting where we are and still being on this journey
Yes,
to
absolutely. I
continue to
definitely.
grow. How did things change for you when
Yes,
once you
so
let go of
I
the anger?
started seeking ways to be a positive influence in other people's lives. And that's actually what led me and my husband actually to found, I guess that's the word. We were founders of
Yeah.
a girl empowerment program called Responsibility, and we still are. I serve as the board president and CEO, and loving every day of it. And the thing is that I realized that if I needed that help, how many other girls, growing up need that as well, prior to
Hmm.
becoming adulthood, to their adult stage, So, in being a recipient of positive influence and environments, I was like, well, you know what? Now that I have the place and the resources to do so, let me create that environment and positive influence for the generation behind me.
I love it. I'm glad you brought that up. I
Okay.
was going to bring up that organization. How long has
Yeah,
that been in
responsibility.
existence?
Well, it's been in existence in my mind for ever, seems like, but it manifested with the 501c3 in July of 2019.
Okay. So it's not, it's just
Correct.
still in toddler
Correct.
stage.
But this is crazy. We have grown by 300% since 2019 as far as our outreach, donations, visibility. And we actually had a statistician, a stats person, actually analyze our growth. And she's
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, you guys have grown 300% since you've launched. I was like, wow, I'd been working the whole time. I didn't notice, but and this is with a pandemic under our belt. I mean, I guess it's technically pandemic
Hmm.
season right now. We're not, fully eradicated from it, but with that global challenge, we still grew, and so we have. I guess you can put our organization with dog years, or cat years, so 1 year equals seven or something.
Right, right, right. Yeah, well, and it's a testament to the need for it, obviously. I want to explore a little bit more about, you said it was in your mind for many years. What was it that, like, take us on the journey of how you came up with this idea and what you had to go through to make it
Yes.
real.
So responsibility is launched out of course, the need. I saw that I wasn't the only woman who was dealing with the expectations of being tough all the time, but with a lack of resources, and a lack of healthy resources. Let's just say that. And I also saw so much inequality going on and between genders. And again, this is just my personal journey. Some women can grow up and be like, I don't see there's any inequalities. Well, from my standpoint, in my experience, I did see that firsthand. I saw confident,
Hmm.
assertive, not aggressive, assertive women be called the B word, but then I also saw confident, assertive men be called, oh, he's such a leader. It's like, okay, and that's, of course, an elementary definition of what I saw, but I was like, okay, and then every day seeing something like that, and I was just like, okay, we need to change the image of, first of all, we need more confident women who are comfortable in who they are so that they do not have to
Hmm.
feel like they need to emulate someone. They don't need to, they don't have a tendency to be catty or backbiting or jealous or envious because those bring out other nasty qualities in us, So if you have healthy women who are confident in who they are, if they're a girly girl, if they're a tomboy, if they're a, creative person or they're a scientist, like my background's in computer science, then go ahead and just be comfortable in who you are. And then also add on that emotional stability, you know? And so
Right.
it just years
Right.
and books and conferences of just sitting in and seeing all that I just mentioned. And I was like, you know what? I could start right where I live, you know? And so the nonprofit was born out of just experiencing so much and being frustrated that no service like that was available where I lived. And when definitely not
And when
when
you
I
were
was
growing
growing
up.
up, I got a taste of it. I guess it was a high. No, hold on. Yeah, it was a high. I'm sorry, middle school program, and as of now, it no longer exists. But it was called Becoming a Woman program, and it changed my life. It
Oh,
was just
wow.
a group of women in the community that came to my middle school. It was like one day after school, once a month, but they talked about things with us that I don't know if my mother was too embarrassed to talk to me about or didn't know herself. But it just enlightened me. I was just
Mm-hmm.
so grateful for it. And again, I don't see that in existence anymore, and definitely not in the schools. So I was like, you know what? Let me bring back what was an inspiration and an upliftment for me at such a formidable years, in those formidable years, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And let me bring that with up to date, realistic, circumstances. Oh,
Right. A
yeah.
lot has changed since we were kids. So, you're right, because kids now are facing so many more influences, not just from parents and school, but we can't have this discussion without mentioning social media and how that is played such a big part in influencing girls' images of themselves and images and how they see the world.
Yes. In fact, Responsibility did an engagement in September that focused on positive body image, because oftentimes social media will teach one image of the perfect woman. And we
Mm-hmm.
know
Right.
that's not true, And oh,
They
yeah.
come in many
Oh,
more
yeah.
sizes than that.
Anyway. But yeah.
When you talked about seeing the disparities in your personal experience, do you feel like that's because you worked in the industry that you were in? You said you had a degree in computer science, and then I know you also worked
Yes.
in the banking industry.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a lot of
Oh, yeah.
reason why you
Yeah,
saw that was because
first
the
first row
industries you were in?
seats,
Yeah.
because it was where I graduated. My undergrad degree is in computer science, and graduate is international business. So ever since I've graduated college, I have been in male-dominated industries, hands down, and
Hmm.
I knew that going in. But remember, I had the tough, hard exterior. I can do anything. I can overcome it, which is true, But when you keep seeing that over and over and over again, it does start to affect you, you know.
Yeah, it wears you down. You can be tough, you can have the right mindset, and when you keep going up against that every single day,
Absolutely.
it takes
Yeah,
a
you
toll.
definitely understand. So that was it, and it was where, well, I know you'll eventually get to this, but I thought I was doing fine actually because through the cycles of the hard and the cycles of overcoming obstacles, quote unquote, on my own, I thought I had arrived when
Hmm.
I finally got a position in finance that took me out of the face to face contact with my clients, which was on the investment side, and actually put me on the back end. So I was more directing where the money went, when trades occurred. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever,
Hmm.
But that actually, that quote unquote dream, on the corporate side, basically became a nightmare, you know.
So yeah, so what you thought was what you thought you were getting into was turned out to not be exactly
No,
what you
no.
thought it was.
Yeah. So,
And
of
yeah.
course, I've had responsibility. We still, of course, responsibility is, large and in charge in my mind, of course, and becoming more and more recognized in our communities, and we're so grateful for that. So, I, of course, had that on my off times, and that was successful, still is, and I was like, well, I could just transfer this success to what I'm doing in the corporate side too, and have the same positive, associations, when I got this promotion.
Mm-hmm.
But
Impact, yeah.
unfortunately, no.
So tell us more about that because you had a lot going on in 1 year, and I want
Yeah.
to go through that briefly, but I also want to focus on it's not what was happening to you. It was kind of more looking at it from what was happening for you and how what
Yeah.
resulted from that one
Yeah.
year of experience because you had a lot. So take us
Yeah,
through some of
so
that.
when I reached my plateau of fine was when it was the fall of actually 2020, so we were that was still within the first 6 or 8 months of the pandemic, but as far as me
Mm-hmm.
personally, things were fine. They were actually, I got the promotion that I'd wanted for years, in finance. So I was able to take my analytical mind and, be able to use it on the back end of investments and retirement and, make sure that all of our clients, money went to the right spot and moving from the face-to-face contact with my clients to the back end where I could just dress any way I wanted to, work from home, I was like, oh, this is so great.
Uh-huh.
But my 40-hour, 45-hour work week turned quickly into like 68 to 70-hour work weeks. And
Oof. That
great,
is
because money
unsustainable.
never sleeps. And so my territory, quote unquote, went from just a local Virginia area to the entire United States. So I had to be available for every time zone that we service. So that was from Maine to Hawaii. And I did not realize that obviously when I took the job, but I probably still would have went that way. But what ended up happening from October to December of 2020, I did not realize how fast things were affecting me negatively. So first I had the stress of the long
Mm-hmm.
hours,
Mm-hmm.
and weekends. It wasn't just Monday through Friday. It was actually weekends too. And then with that, I wasn't eating properly and I wasn't resting properly. So I was always thinking about work and eating while working, and it was just ridiculous, Lori. I couldn't. Now that I look back on it, I was like, I could not believe I let myself get so out of balance. And I know that means something different to everyone.
But it's pretty common, especially for women, because we have so much that we're trying to accomplish that things get, we get put last on the list of who to take care of. And so that's very easy to fall into that trap of not sleeping, not eating well, not taking care of yourself. It's a quick downward
Yeah. And at the
spiral.
same time, I'm trying to prove myself as in this new role, again, male dominated,
Mm-hmm.
industry because quote unquote only men have analytical minds where they can, process numbers like that. And
Yeah.
anyway, those were the lies
Okay.
I was told. But anyway, but I had gotten to that point where I was just trying to actually, unfortunately, people please, and occupational please. And at the same time, running the nonprofit and dealing with the pandemic and, dealing with in laws, everything just becomes a big pile, after a while. And then in December, things started to get really unfine for me. It was where
Unfine.
it
Yes.
was
Okay.
where I mean, I tell the youth that I teach now, I tell them you cannot avoid this because life at one point will bring you to your knees. You know, when you
Mm.
think that you have it by the mane, by the tail, it really has you. You know, if you are not aware, if you don't slow down and reflect, if you don't breathe every now and then. So, what happened was that all of a sudden I'm working. It was one of my super long days. You know, you start at 6 or 7 a.m. I didn't get finished until like 7 or 8 p.m. You know, but it was in the middle of one of those days my right eye just started hurting. You know, I was like, oh, God, the eyelash went the wrong way, you know, and it was just a constant
Mm.
annoyance. And then it got to a constant pain. And then it got to a point where the whole side of my right of my head was throbbing. And then the eyes started to turn really red. And then it got to a point where I was sensitive to light in the right eye, that I couldn't even open it well. And so I'm looking at,
Okay.
I had three computer screens I had to work with for the job. And I had to put on sunglasses. In fact, I remember my husband walking up behind me because he worked from home at that time too. And he was like, "What are you doing wearing sunglasses in the house?" I was like,
My future is so bright. I
apparently.
need to wear shades.
Well, that's funny because just like my vision, it was dimming at that point, you know, which is unfortunate. But I was wearing sunglasses in the house, and this happened over a course of 5 days. This progression of this eye piercing. I mean, I can't even say like irritation. It was literally hurting, and I would have to take NyQuil to go to sleep.
Mm.
And on the fifth day, my husband was like, "Look, if you do not go to a doctor today, then you're not going to have a place to sleep tonight. Okay? Because I can't watch you be in pain and
Mm.
work like that and, put yourself through this torture." So I had to let my remote boss know, "Look, I need to go to the doctor. My eye," and same thing I just explained to you. I was telling her, and she was like, "Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, how's your other eye doing?" And I was like, "Well,
Oh my gosh.
it's
Like,
it's okay.
really?
The other eye's doing all right, but the pain is so great. I'm just gonna have to go." She was like, "Okay, all right. Well, when are you coming back?" I,
I just have
right.
such a hard time with this. It's so crazy.
This was if
Yeah, go
if I
on.
didn't experience it myself, I wouldn't believe it. But I said, "Look, I'll have to come back when I get to get from the eye doctor. We'll see how this goes." But anyway, it ended up being that I had an eye injury that was so rare that less than 200,000 people in the United States of America actually got it. And so I got referred immediately to an eye surgeon for this. And it was just back to
Mm.
back visits. I had to go at least once a week. They had to do special drops, and oh, it was awful, painful, awful. And this was through the Christmas season. This was through all the New Year's gatherings, and slowly but surely, I mean, it was just basically not basically. It was quite pronounced, but it was eye inflammation that I had to get under control before they could find out the cause. And so, in the process of that, through medication and the holidays and all that, in January, I got the phone call that my father had just passed away suddenly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it was where
Wow.
pre COVID, we had put him in a nursing home because he had developed dementia and Alzheimer. And it was where, as a family, we could not take care of him. We're like in our home and,
Mm.
work and all that. So pre COVID, we
Right,
put him in this
right.
facility, but unfortunately, that's where he ended up passing away. And it was so fast and
Mm.
sudden that, it was clearly a shock, and the crazy thing about it too, he
Right.
passed away on his birthday, which was January the 11th. So I got that
Mm.
phone call while working with one eye, dealing with the pain, letting that subside, or trying to get it under control. And then crazy things were going on with our country, as you know. That was not too long
Yep.
after the insurrection. And right,
Yeah,
it'll go down
everybody
in
knows about
history.
that.
And
Uh-huh.
so our neighborhood is very divided on views like that. And so my husband and I were very concerned about our comings and goings, which is unfortunate that even our personal space felt violated. And then a few
Wow.
weeks after that, I mean, well, the whole process, I had to bury my father remotely, because of COVID. COVID, it was the height of COVID, and he was in a different state, and that was another awful thing. And then, in addition to that, at the end of January, beginning of February, I believe, my manager just let me know, hey, all the work you're doing is great. And, end of year, we know was tough because we were trying to get assets moved for our clients' tax obligations, all that they wanted to count for 2020. So thanks for working, those 14-hour shifts. We really appreciate it. This is the thing, though. All the work that you did, we were using it as training to train this new facility that we have opening up in the Philippines. So thank you so much for all your hard work, because now we have this training module for this new staff in the Philippines. And I was like, oh, okay, we're doing something good. And then she said, yeah, because by the time March rolls around, your job position will be eliminated.
Wow. Thanks for
Correct.
busting your butt all this time
Right.
and
And
bye-bye.
thanks for the training material, by the way. So
Right.
again, I'm dealing with the one eye. Just buried my father remotely. I didn't even see him. Just technically got laid off over the internet.
Yeah, remote thanks.
And
Okay.
in March, in like 1 month's time, I won't have an income that I can count on, because I didn't know how the severance package would go. It was just too early to get those details.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, everything got unfine.
Did you, backing up for a second, did you find out what caused your
Yes.
eye
It
issue?
wasn't until the summer of 2021, though, that I found out that this is just a side note, 90% of African Americans have a vitamin D deficiency. And it shows up differently in like different ways, for different African Americans if they don't have enough vitamin D.
Okay. This
Right.
could be a public service announcement because I didn't
Correct.
know that it was that high for African Americans, but I know that for Americans in general, it's very high as well because we don't spend a
Correct.
whole lot of time
Correct.
outside in the sun.
Correct.
And so that's how it showed up for
Yeah.
you as a with the
Because
vitamin.
for
Wow.
the first of all, I wasn't eating properly during those stressful times, and so I wasn't even
Oh,
getting. I was probably deficient in other
yes,
vitamins,
right.
but that was the one specifically that caused the inflammation in the eye. And obviously it took months and months of research to even find that. And thank goodness, summer
Yeah.
came around and I was able to spend some time outside and actually get that vitamin D, but I also had to supplement as well. And so the real test will be this winter when the sun and the outside availability won't be there, and we'll continue to stay positive, of course, but at least I don't have all those other things going on.
Yeah. Do you need like those lights that give, they have for people who have seasonal something. It's called SAD, seasonal something disorder. It's not coming to me, but there's a
Ooh,
special light
well,
that
now you're
gives them
teaching me something.
sunlight.
I don't know. Like I said, this is all new to me, so it's like I had to look into it.
Okay. All right. Well, and I know I personally take a vitamin D supplement because I had tested very low years ago, and so I've just always for the past several years taken a D
Yeah, yeah.
supplement.
Well, I have to quadruple up my vitamin D because it's the melanin in African American skin that blocks most vitamin D that's absorbed by the sun. So,
Okay.
that's a blessing and a curse, I guess. But it's where, It's where it
Sure,
really
sure.
showed up bad for me with that deficiency. So, yeah, that was the winter of
Okay.
2021 for
So,
me.
right.
Yeah, so
Yes,
2020
2020.
to 21,
So we're just
yeah.
going into 21. Yeah. Yeah, right, right,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, less than a year ago. Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're getting lots of good lessons here. Lots of good lots of good value in this episode. Things to pay attention to. Let's touch on I want to go back to the
Yes.
organization to responsibility for just a minute. Oh, you know what? We're going to cut this part out. Where I want to
Okay.
go is not there. I want to go to where you ended up. Now, so you were let your job ended and you were looking for new opportunities because I'm really excited to share with my listeners how sometimes doors are closing, doors are always closing, and other doors are opening. So you didn't know when that first door closed where you were going to end up, but you are doing such
I
wonderful
appreciate
work
it.
now, different,
Yep.
completely different direction.
So I appreciate that, Lori. Yeah, so the victory is where when everything was stripped away from me, it seemed like my health, when you have a parent pass away, of course, that changed your perspective on everything. Let's see. And then
Yes.
my financial security was gone, And I even told my husband, I was like, look, I understand we could probably make it on one income, but let's be honest, we don't want to do that. So
Right.
it was where
Right.
I was in a different spot I'd never been before, so it made me vulnerable. So that hardened shell where everything depended on me, that was broken away. It was no longer I could depend on myself. So I started reaching out. And of course, responsibility was doing well. And that's great. I have a wonderful board. My board vice president and board secretary have been phenomenal, and they still are phenomenal with keeping that part going. But professionally, on the profit side, I guess you would say, because I didn't want to continue to rely on donations and grants and all that for my income. That will be later, later, later. But for right now, I wanted to still use my technical analytical skills in another way. And it was a girlfriend of mine that we actually had a prior business together. It was a for profit business. And since then, she had left, which was fine. We left on great terms. And she was like, Ange, I want to go into education. Her background's in accounting. So we're both finance numbers people. And she was like, education's just been calling me, So I reconnected with her and I said, you know what? You were telling me a few years ago how much you loved education and you said it was a great career switch. Can you tell me more about that? She was like, absolutely. Let me walk you through the process. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you that. They need career switchers in schools because they want people with real life experience. She just talked to me for like a whole afternoon, it seemed like. And so I went through the process of doing the application, doing the testing, finding a school system that actually took career switchers and did several interviews. And by May, the end of April, beginning of May of 2021, I was extended an offer by a local high school to teach, get this, computer science and economics and
Okay.
personal finance. So I have 6 classes that I teach on the high school level.
Wow.
4 of them are computer science based, and 2 of them are economics and personal finance because they said that you are a perfect fit. I've never heard that word for a job, but anyway, they said you are a perfect fit for what our students need with real life experience. We can get your teacher's license later. We'll put you on a provisional license. And you can go ahead and apply for your permanent license if you want to continue teaching because we'd love to have you at least for the 2021-2022 school year.
Wow. That is so interesting and so heartwarming that you were able to take all of your professional experience and now pour it into the education system. Do you love it?
I'm scared to use that word yet because I thought I am enjoying it.
Are
It's
you
a
enjoying
challenge
it?
that I enjoy, definitely. And the kids, they are, for the most part, like 80% of them are these sponges. They're just like, oh, tell us more stories about work, you know? you know? And another cool thing too, Lori, I never thought about this, but they said, thanks for telling us your background because I had them get to know me at the beginning of the school year. And they were like, we know that the work you give us makes sense. It's not just busy work. We know the work you're giving us and the things you have us think through are related to the real world. And not saying anything negative about teachers who've been teachers ever since they graduated college, but the real life experience is really what the students are hungry for.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. And
correct.
right now it's more relatable, so it makes them more interested in learning.
Yeah, so that has made it the love part. Yes, I dare say love, And and yeah, it's
Okay.
really been a turn of my life I never thought I would enjoy. And my eye healed in June of this year, just before summer school started, which was wonderful.
Oh, good.
And, you
Yeah.
know, I know now that I've endured so much, and I know that now it's where my vulnerability has brought me to a place of at least peace, knowing that if something else super hard comes along, that not only do I have the resources, but I also have the experience to endure and look for the next positive chapter.
That word that word vulnerability has come up a lot
Huh.
for me in recent conversations, and it's a lot of people have a difficult time wrapping their head around allowing themselves to be vulnerable. And yet, as you're talking right now, that's the only place where people can really come in and help you is when you allow yourself that vulnerability,
Yeah.
then they can come
Yeah, and
in.
it's interesting. And I don't want to go over your time, but it was where what I found was that to be vulnerable, you don't tell everybody your life story, like the such as, but it does need to be a
Yes.
place where when you approach someone, you never know how they can impact your life, that you come with a positive humility, you come to circumstances knowing that, what, the circumstance I'm in right now is not permanent, good or bad, you know? But
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
and
that's so good.
I don't know if it's okay to mention her on your podcast, but Brene Brown actually had me realize that it was all my times of commuting back pre-COVID. I'd listened to, I think it was one of her books, Dare to Lead. I listened to that audiobook. She talked about vulnerability, and I was like, that's so weak. What's that lady? Especially not being a woman, we can't show our
Right.
vulnerability at all. We can't cry at work. We
Yeah.
can't, do all this other stuff and be taken seriously. But she wasn't talking about that. She was talking about letting, asking questions, being humble enough to say, gosh, I don't know the answer to that. I have some growing to do. Hey, would you be able to help me? I don't have all the answers, but I'm growing. Is that all
Yes.
right? Thank you. Please and thank you. And just remembering your manners as you continue to grow and personally develop.
That thanks for bringing up Brene Brown because she is synonymous with
Yeah.
vulnerability. Before we wrap up, tell us what the song is that you listened to when you were going through all those tough times. What was it that energized you, or even maybe you still listen to it now? We all go through points where like I need to be charged up and hyped up. And
Absolutely. I would
what's your
say
song?
it is Storms in Africa by Enya. And it just reminds me of a place where I was when I went to West Africa. And I'm not West African, you know, but my DNA has actually been traced back to West Africa, which I thought was super cool. Technically, my DNA has been in the United States since 1824. That's the records we were able to find, you know, and we took advantage
Wow.
of the DNA research and found out that West Africa was, and which makes total sense with the whole, you know, Middle Passage slave trade thing. And it's where, when I went there myself, it was a peace. As soon as I stepped on the ground, it was a sweetness to the air. It was a peace about the land. I was in Ghana, West Africa, and if you look at the whole continent of Africa, you know, there's always something going on. But at that time, Ghana was peaceful, prosperous, you know, super, super inviting and open. And the people were beautiful and genuine. I just felt like, wow, this is amazing. And the music I heard, the food that I ate, felt comfortable. And oddly enough, you know, if you were to see me, you know, if anybody's like, you know, ever sees me in the street, they would think, oh, wow, yeah, I could see how you probably would look like somebody from Ghana, you know? And the people there in Ghana didn't know I was from the United States of America. So whenever they'd be like, oh, where are you from? You know, and I would say, oh, I'm from Virginia in the United States of America, you know, every person, it was at least 15 to 20 people that I met for the first time there outside the group I went with. They would just pause after I say where I'm from and they would say, welcome home. And so that song reminded
Wow.
me of that amazing time I had. And, you know, when you have that sense of identity, you also gain that strength and confidence knowing that, you know, I have come from this beautiful, strong, amazing people that produce these beautiful, sweet atmospheres and foods and cultures and smell. It was just amazing. Anyway, that was a long answer to your question.
That is such a beautiful story. I love that. We're going to do an episode at some point about finding your energetic home, and that sounds like
Yes,
that is where it
absolutely.
is for you. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story today on
All right.
Fine is
Thank
a
you, Lori.
four-letter word, Angela.